We're back with more Shacknews Awards. We just can't stop, won't stop. Shacknews Awards. We're gonna kick it off today with Best Graphics of 2021. This award removes criticism about gameplay or narrative or a lot of things that make up a Game of the Year nominee. This is literally just looking at the graphics in the game. So thought I'd make that statement before we start debating who has a nomination that isn't Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart.
Well, and this is it graphical fidelity, not art direction or visual style,
Correct.
right?
This is
Okay.
not art. Art style is a separate category that we give awards for. It's not art direction. This is literally just you look at the tech, you look at what they're accomplishing either with lighting, textures, amount of characters on screen, all that stuff.
Yeah, I'll start it off. Hitman 3. Hitman 3 is freaking gorgeous. And it's amazing how much activity that they put into every single level in that game without a hitch. It just always it moves so smoothly. The world is so rich and full of so many glorious details at every turn. And it's like there are a lot of good graphic games this year, but I don't think anything like made me stop and look around more often than Hitman 3.
Okay.
Actually,
it's a good nomination.
just to follow that up too, it's not just Hitman 3, but they actually took that and applied it to all of Hitman 2 and Hitman 1. So as the series has progressed, they've updated the visuals. So it's not like you play Hitman 3 and it looks gorgeous, and then you go to 2 and it doesn't look quite as well, and you go to 1 and it looks a little worse. Like, it's consistent across
That game's a
three
great
games.
value.
Yeah,
You're getting 3 games in one, and they essentially remastered 2 of those games. Like, it's
Yeah. And
it's
keeping in mind that, I mean, I'll save it because this what I had to say was not about graphics, so we'll move.
And one of the best parts of all that is that they took the whole package of the trilogy and managed to cram it down under 100 gigabytes, which is like, thank you. In this age of small hard drives on new consoles, thank you for that.
Sometimes it's not even small consoles; it's just fat games. Like space comes at a premium.
I mean,
I guess
I don't know. Like, what are the default storage options on these consoles right now?
Like they're usually gigs? Around like 800 gigs.
800 gigs?
Mm-hmm.
In a world where COD is like a quarter of a gig, or sorry, 250, a quarter of a terabyte, I should say. Like, you're gonna maybe have 4 of these major big games that can fit on a console without the expansion.
Yeah.
I guess the question I want to ask in the regards to like the amount of storage space it takes up, are you saying the graphical quality is impressive for how much they compressed it?
Oh no, it like stayed at a level of like quality that was just beyond most other things I've played, while also somehow using some wizardry to compress that file size down under 100 gigs for all 3 games.
Yeah, it's not a case of it looks good for the amount of gigs it takes up. It's just it looks phenomenal, and cherry on top, it's not giant.
Okay, so that's just the bonus. All right.
It reminds me of Source Engine games in that way. Like, even in 2004, like Half-Life 2 was gorgeous, but it still left a relatively small footprint on your hard drive. Just efficiency,
Mm-hmm.
One of the coolest things about the Hitman 3 graphics is the lighting and the use of like reflections on water in what is it, Chongping? Is that what it's called? Chongqing. I start that level and I take a little walkabout, and I'm like, I don't even remember being a hitman. Like, I have to restart the level and get back to business because I've just started wandering around and checking out the signs, and it's so gorgeous, that level. It's one of the most gorgeous levels I've seen in video games. It's definitely the most gorgeous level I've seen in the Hitman trilogy.
Sweet. Anyone have another nomination.
Yeah,
But
I think Psychonauts deserves some love in this nominee category. Some of that stuff, when I was playing through it, just I stopped and had to wander around and look at like the level because it was so uniquely designed and looked so vibrant and colorful. I just couldn't help myself. Much on the
I'm
same
gonna
like
stop
level.
you there. I don't think it's the graphics that are impressive in Psychonaut. I think it's the art direction. I think it's uh insanely uh design, like it just a crazy attention to detail in all the design that you see. I don't think it's the highest fidelity graphics that we've seen this year. I don't think it runs on older consoles very well because it was built kind of in this cross-gen era. To me, it pushes things forward with its art style more than it does its graphics, in my opinion.
It's very highly stylized.
Yeah, and it does look like a cartoon. And like if you've been playing Double Fine games or LucasArts games or Sierra Online games for 20, 30 years, seeing the evolution from like Maniac Mansion to Psychonauts 2, yeah, ridiculous jump in graphics fidelity and quality and environmental storytelling. But yeah, in this field this year, no, I don't think Psychonauts 2 is the best graphics. But
They
I think
did
it's an
do-
amazing
That's
looking
fair.
game.
They did do some technical wizardry with it. Like I mentioned this, and it was brought up by other people during the review period earlier this year. There's a brain level where you walk through a doorway, and you end up on like the other side of the level without any sort of transition or any sort of loading whatsoever. And like it was so subtle that I didn't even know what happened until I looked around and realized that I was like a good like football field away from where I had walked through that doorway in the first place. And it's like, and I don't know if that's a graphics thing, but it is like some impressive level of like technical wizardry they put in there.
Mhm. I was just smiling because I'm like, I did that in Quake in '96. It
Those
just
are
didn't
just
look.
That's
those were discreet. Yeah, I think. Well,
yeah.
is
No,
Psychonauts 2
I
one of those also?
understand what you're saying, TJ.
No, that's fine.
Just the way you put it, I was like, teleporters have existed for a while
Oh,
in
I
video,
know. It
but
was just wild to like.
it's how it's portrayed, how you look through the doorway, and there, like to your point, that there is no loading, in that instance. I understand what you're saying. That's to clarify for our viewers, uh, with just how different what you're
I was
talking
just
about
thinking
is.
about that for a second, and like, yeah, you are right. But like to have that without any sort of transition or activational
Mhm.
conduit whatsoever, it was kind of mind blowing in the moment.
Hey
Yeah.
Blake, did you play Ratchet and Clank on performance, fidelity, or the middle of the road option where you get 60 FPS with some ray tracing on?
I tried them all out. I can't remember. I think I went with fidelity overall, though, just because I I wanted to check out the prettiness. I just got like a new fancy TV that like works really well in tandem with the PS5, and because they're both Sony. And man, oh man, I don't know. I didn't see anything as gorgeous as Ratchet and Clank, honestly, this year. It's just head to toe detailed. Like everything, like minute little things, like the fur on the Lombax is like on Ratchet. Like you want to pet him, you know what I mean? Like just little things like that, the lighting, like the environments, everything, like head to toe. Like
It looks like a Pixar movie. It looks like you're
yeah,
playing a Pixar movie. Like
yeah,
and I get that might be kind of weird because uh I think David, you kind of mentioned it was hard to tell the difference between like environmental background and actual characters in the game or interactable elements because the graphics fidelity for all of them are kind of consistent.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. I think that game, it like pounds its chest at the very beginning, and it shows you like this
this is
is
next
like,
gen.
yeah,
This
this
is
is
next
like
gen.
welcome to this new generation, and welcome, like they're really showing off what the console can do. I think
Yeah.
early games in a console's life cycle need to do this. They might not be the best games, but they're like showpieces. This is definitely a
Yeah.
showpiece.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
it looks outstanding.
Sure.
like
Sure.
they're like this is gonna be like Super Mario World was for us to some kids out there. I feel like from a standpoint of like Super Mario World like blew my mind visually just as much as it did like gameplay wise. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense, but at the time
Yeah, but
yeah, it was
that was a balance of amazing level design, a really nice art style, maybe the best soundtrack ever created for a video game at the time.
uh-huh.
Like
Oh yeah.
that was, to me, it was more than just, oh, it looks like a better Mario. That was definitely a bonus.
Yeah.
The art style, the introduction to Yoshi, like all these things were like huge, but to compare Ratchet this ripped apart to that, I think is a stretch. Like, because the
I'm saying
gameplay is nowhere near that. It is that, like you said, if you're one of the whatever kid out there is lucky enough to have a PS5 right now, yeah, this
Yeah.
could be their first entrance into that platforming space, or like, this is like, I have two nephews, right? And they always ask me for shows that I like, and I'll mention some things that are in the 4:3 aspect ratio. They're like, "Ew, I'm not gonna watch that." Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, no.
instantly off put by the concept of 4:3 aspect ratio. I feel like
Yeah.
Ratchet and Clank's gonna be one of those games that kids point to, and they're like, "It doesn't look as good as Ratchet and Clank. Gross," you know. So it's
Mhm.
like it is that standard bearer. It's gonna be
Yeah,
one of those things that people point to
I don't
as
think
like does
it's a better game than Super Mario World, like obviously, but I think that like if you're talking like a different generational experiences, that
Mhm.
I think it would definitely have that effect on a game.
Yeah, I think like the Gears franchise on Xbox 360 kind of did that. Like there's different fence posts in the history of video gaming where you're like, that's the game that kind of was like, oh wow, this is what this thing can do. You could argue Half-Life Alyx in VR was that, or the whatever, you could go down the line
Yeah,
in each console and really point to a game like that. And I think you're right. Like Rift Apart's going to be one of those games. But I couldn't
I
have you
know.
put it in the
No,
same
I get
sentence
it.
as
I mean,
Super Mario World.
I feel the same way about Super Mario World. Don't worry. I felt like the analogy was there. I guess.
Mhm.
Ratchet and Clank is definitely my pick for this category. I feel like it's deserved, but I wanted to play the fidelity mode, but it was too maybe I'm definitely more sensitive to 30 FPS than I used to be. I ended up falling in the middle of the road option, which isn't accurate because it's more than that. Like it's 60 frames per second with ray tracing. It still looked great. But I just wondered if this, because I feel like Chris knows a lot about this. What you thought of the fidelity mode's stability, Chris. I don't know how much time you put into Ratchet and Clank, but I found it kind of stuttery and I just couldn't do it.
I never saw any stutter in the fidelity mode during my time, but
I might
it's
just feel more
possible.
sensitive to 30 FPS. It might not be stuttering, it might just be me. But I mean, regardless, like I played the first level in fidelity, but ended up going down to the 60 FPS with ray tracing and still thought it looked great. Yeah, that game is just damn pretty. It's eye candy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I switched modes at some point, but I don't remember it being because of any graphical issues. At the time, I just preferred 60.
I remember when Miles Morales shipped and they had that fidelity versus performance
Yeah,
mode. I picked performance mode for that because that
All
game
the
is so
way.
damn active.
Yeah.
And you want to be web slinging at 60 FPS. So, and with
yeah,
Ratchet
exactly.
and Clank, I agree. Like it is an active game, but for the most part, your character's kind of on the ground. Like yeah, there's stuff moving around them. So I've been able to handle the fidelity mode in that pretty well, and I'm also, I wouldn't say I'm sensitive to 30 FPS. I tolerate it because I play a lot of Switch games, especially in handheld. So it's not as big of a deal to me. I'm willing to make the sacrifice to look at the better graphics fidelity in the case of a game like Ratchet and Clank. In the
I guess
case of
that's
like Spider-Man, I wasn't as willing to do that.
No, and I guess that's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't feel like their second option between performance and fidelity was that much of a sacrifice. I was actually really impressed with it, so I felt better about going with that. And I never thought I'd be one of those people who was like, "Oh, frame rate," but here we are. Like over the past few years, I've just become more sensitive to it, to where I really just don't like 30 FPS. But that game still looks great at that 60 FPS with some ray tracing enabled option. Like it just looks great no matter what.
Oh, with my ultra wide, like I'm getting tired of playing games in 60 FPS. Like I can't. You won't get me to play Rocket League on a console anymore. I just won't do
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I want to play it. I like the field of view and I like the 120 FPS. So yeah, like
yeah.
no, that's I know 4K 60 is kind of like that's like their North Star right now in a lot of game devs.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're getting a lot of 4K 30 right now, and
Mhm.
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Chris, I think you mentioned this in a different category, but Rift Apart really does something uh that like under the hood that I think people are kind of just glossing over with the that pull mechanic and like the different, I don't know what to call it, like the temporal portals in the game. I don't know if you want to mention what they're doing there.
Yeah, it just uses the power of the new drives in the console to change the way the game is played in a meaningful way. It's got the fast disk access, so it can load up game worlds faster than we've ever been able to before with console games. And when you're playing, the effect is it's more or less seamless. Like you said, it's like you're watching a CG movie. In those cases, you don't have to wait for loads, or you don't have to worry about how much cost is associated with rendering a scene. You just kind of are watching it and going, and that's kind of how this game works.
Yeah, I think it's something that's like under the hood and it's like behind the scenes of that game where you're like you don't notice it at all. And I like things like this because it literally takes advantage of tech that did not exist in the PS4 or previous gen consoles, and it's a tangible demonstration of why they put that tech in there and why solid state's so important to begin with. And I think this trend of solid state in consoles is great. It'll lead to more cool things like this in the future. Any other nominations? Right now we have Hitman and Ratchet and Clank.
Those
It's
are
not
pretty
my.
much the
Was
front
this?
runner. Oh, sorry, Chris.
As I say, I would still nominate Ratchet and Clank, but I'd like to throw out a shout out to Guardians of the Galaxy on the PS5, Series X, and PC. When you turn that game all the way up and take some time, I think the team that did the environmental design on that game managed to squeak a lot out of the available hardware and power they got as you kind of progress through that game. Say what you will about how it plays or whatever, but it never fails to disappoint when it comes to eye candy as far as stuff you're strolling around through, making use of the liberties granted by the ability to create worlds that we haven't really seen before, I guess. And
Nice.
like I said, all the environmental art and everything is just showcase quality. And on the new consoles and PC, like I said, when you've got the equipment and a display that shows it off, that game is also pretty crazy.
Yeah, I know they didn't. I know it's not like the James Gunn like movie versions of the characters or whatever, but like his aesthetic is very vibrant. Like his color palette is like, I don't know, a lot of bright like blues and greens and reds, so yeah, translating like his cosmic universe style into a game is definitely no small task.
It's
The
much
game is
more of a
definitely a
looker.
showpiece for a HDR display if you don't have one yet.
Yeah, it's much more of a looker than the Avengers was last year. Like Avengers was just kind of like all around, but this was what I felt like. I don't know, like to Blake's point, the movies are so popular and ubiquitous that you start to picture the characters as the cast that plays them. But with this, I felt like they were their own versions and they were very well realized.
I'm gonna
I'm
move on
glad to
really
see
quick,
that, yeah.
but and Ozzy's not here to defend the Avengers, so I will. Dude, that was freaking gorgeous. The character models in that Avengers game are like chef's kiss, man. Like the Hulk model in particular, I
That's
thought
last
was
year's
like,
game, though.
I know.
That's last year's
We're
game.
moving on, but I'm just.
You're
was
really
gonna add that
defending the
the
character
Wakanda
models
expansion
in
that they come
Avengers?
out this
Like,
year.
You're really
well,
defending the character models in
man,
Avengers
I'll
after
take
how
screenshots.
hard they got dragged? Like,
I'll take
I just
screenshots and send them to you.
I
And you
guess.
can make your own decision based on that. But
Please
I don't want
don't. I don't need any more images of that in my brain.
Aw. Well, I mean,
I
we can
appreciate
move
you
on.
coming to their defense. They've worked hard on that. And
Guardians
yeah.
of the Galaxy looks great though.
Guardians of
This
the Galaxy
year's-
does look good. I
Yeah.
actually need to sit down with that this weekend, I think. So no, that's a good nomination, Chris. I think that's everything. I mean, Forza looks nice, but it's very much so similar to Forza Horizon 4. But yeah.
Something about Forza, in terms of looking nice, because I mean, I think it's worth noting that the cars look phenomenal, and like that tight space around the car looks phenomenal, but it does a really good job of looking good in that bubble, and it does look good everywhere. But I don't think that it holds up when your eyes go too far off the road, you know, which
What the
is
hell, like, to push back, when you're in a racing game, you should be looking in front of you. Like, and
yeah,
there is
true, but if
there's a
you
benefit of
can,
motion blur that
of
can
course
cover
there
up
is.
some
But
of
if
that
you can
stuff.
look to the side and be like, that doesn't look as good, that
Mhm.
doesn't look that great. It's just, I was impressed with the car models, very much so. I was impressed with those visuals. I wasn't impressed with the environment as much. So,
Yeah, that's fair.
So I
even
have
if you're
probably
paused
the
at the same
exact
time.
opposite reaction playing that game. I was disappointed when they brought back the 360 car models for the 9th time. I was hoping for upgrades finally, and we still got the same ones. But I
Model's a
thought,
bad word. I enjoyed the actual visual of the car, but I wasn't evaluating the models.
I
Like, I
like the
don't have enough
biomes.
parts
I
for that.
like the volcano and like
yeah,
the
I thought New
sandstorm stuff.
Mexico was astounding. When everything was working in
Yeah.
that game, it was breathtaking to me.
Okay,
The
so I'm not
HDR mixed with
crazy. Thank you, Chris. Like, I was like, I love the diversity of the level that they gave us. Like, there is a lot of different environments.
There's a lot of range there, yeah.
Yeah. Mexico
like
is
if you
obviously
log
a
in
very
right now,
diverse
it's
place,
snowing,
and-
which is another complete 180 from how it looked last week.
Mhm.
Not me.
But yeah, it's I just wanted to drop in with that because that was one of my disappointments that the cars have been the same, but
Mhm.
like just down to the quality of just each little pebble of dirt on the side of the road, the shadows being casted, like the little bits of the rising sun coming through the spines on the cactus, just all these little things. Like the first time you're in a tropical storm,
Mhm.
all the shit it's throwing on the windshield and everything, I think is all great. I just
Yeah.
can't get that online cluster into work.
But
I
graphically,
like it.
there are some aspects of that game that are impressive. And I thought it was
Yeah,
worth
it's still
mentioning.
cross-gen, which is a disappointment. I think it affects the map size and all that. But
Yeah.
if you're on the Xbox Series X and you put it on that visual mode, the 30 FPS mode, it almost gets to that Ratchet and Clank style CG movie type thing. Although less movie looking, just because the art
Yeah, a little
style is not
more.
as deliberately animated. But
Yeah, definitely a little more realism in their graphic style.
yeah,
This is something we kind of worried about though. Like I think Chris, I don't know if Chris mentioned this, but I know it's been discussed among the staff. Like that's the one advantage Sony has with a game like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. It's not cross-gen. It's PS5 only, so they can go
Mhm.
all out. Whereas I was kind of worried, like not worried, but just kind of wondered if having to make a lot of games like Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite backwards compatible with last
it
gen would
definitely
kind of hold
holds
them
the
back.
games back.
Yeah.
But this is something that happens every new console gen, so none of it
sure.
lasts longer than others. But yeah, I totally
Yeah,
agree
for
with
sure.
that. And it's one of my reservations with Forza is that it could have been better. I feel the same. Like you said, Halo is another one.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything that wasn't Ratchet and Clank or Returnal, probably
Yeah,
fall
I'm
in this
surprised no one
category.
brought up Returnal.
So I actually thought about that this morning, but I feel it fits better in the visual direction. Honestly,
Mhm.
like if I put it
Yeah.
head to head against Ratchet and Clank,
They're
not
gonna
just
win. Yeah.
not just the graphics, but again that use of the tech, how they use the solid state to not just make a pretty picture, but do something functional with it via the riffs. But like Returnal's art direction is gorgeous.
This is an important discussion to have because it really
Yeah.
differentiates art style from graphics and why we have
Yeah.
these two categories.
I don't think it would be
That's
as good of
very
a
important.
game, but I could see a world where there is a PS4 Pro version of Returnal that runs at 30 FPS.
I could
Has
too,
bad
honestly.
load and all that. I felt the same way
Yeah.
about the Demon Souls remake. I think part of that was held to move consoles. Not that it wasn't great looking in an accomplishment
yeah.
on its own, but it was clearly,
Yeah.
it straddled that line between the two gens.
Can't
I
wait for
agree
that
with
game
that.
and Returnal to come out on PC.
Dude, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
super
Returnal on
excited.
PC next year or in a couple of years.
Couple years.
Yeah,
Gotta wait till
we'll
they have
see
at least
them
some
for sure.
PS5s out there. But I think
Yeah.
this is good. We got a good group of nominees here. I think we should
so.
vote. I'll start with Chris. What you got?
I'll stick with Ratchet and Clank just because you can take any random 5-second clip of that game from literally any part from the time you turn the machine on till it's off, and you could use it as some sort of demo and pick out something wild, which I don't think you can say for most games.
I'm gonna also vote for Ratchet and Clank because I instantly wanted to play a Mario game with that kind of graphics fidelity when I saw it.
Yes.
I just was like, man, if they could make a 3D Mario that's like super cutting edge when it comes to graphics performance, I think that might be the greatest game of all time. But yeah, because I prefer the gameplay styles of other platformers, other action adventure games to Ratchet and Clank. But this is a category for graphics, and that is unbelievable, that game. Blake, what you got?
Yeah, Ratchet and Clank, man. Talk about like setting a benchmark. Like,
Mhm.
come on, that it's head to, like I said, head to tail gorgeous.
Bill.
Throw my Hitman 3 bone. I nominated it, so.
TJ. You are
TJ's
muted.
You're muted, TJ.
TJ said
His
muted.
computer is fighting to get his stop his bad opinion from coming out.
Likewise, Hitman 3.
Discord was trying to censor you, apparently. Greg.
Ratchet and Clank. Yep.
It's a looker. Donovan.
Yeah, Ratchet and Clank ripped apart.
Denny.
Definitely Ratchet and Clank. I mean, that is next gen. I played that intro again for my my brother, just to show him how amazing it was. So
Nice. David.
Rift Apart or Ratchet and Clank for sure.
Yep.
I thought Bill and TJ made a great case for Hitman. I will say that I'm glad that we kind of defined that we're not just looking like we can have just a pretty picture, but it's also how the tech is used to play into the graphics. Again, with the riffs, I actually find Hitman 3 like I've been playing that recently, and I don't kind of lose distinct objects in it like I do with Ratchet and Clank, and that's just a me thing. I can understand that, but just for a whole package, it's definitely Ratchet and Clank.
And Ozzy and Sam aren't here for the deliberations today, but they did write in their votes. They both voted for Ratchet and Clank. I know Ozzy reviewed Ratchet and Clank, had a lot of very nice things to say about the game. If you want to go back and check out our Shacknews review of the game, it's on the website. So yeah, that's it. 9-2. Sorry, Hitman. Great game. Tough category. I think Guardians of the Galaxy, another great game. I had to go up against this behemoth of a nominee that was Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
So congratulations to Insomniac. They don't miss. I don't think they miss anymore. They just make awesome games. Congratulations to Sony on acquiring Insomniac. That was the best acquisition I've seen in years. And man, we're gonna get more games like this? Come on.
bangers.
Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart
What a
is
bang.
the best graphics of 2021 here at Shacknews. Congratulations.
Give it up for our heroes!
Ratchet, we need your help. Nefarious just...